main difference is that now there is fully security in Kabul. There is no war, there is no racketing, and there is no robbing, no thieves.
Previously, there was stealing and robbing in streets, and people could not walk after 6 o'clock p.m. in the street, and now there is peace.
عموماً ایک کہا جاتا ہے کہ پیس کا دور تھا جس کو امریکنز کہتے ہیں کہ ڈیتھ آف دا سائلنس آف دا گریو یارڈ. یہ بڑا عجیب و غریب لفظ ہے. یعنی امن ہو, تمہارے ملک میں امن ہو تو وہ بہت پرامن ہے, اور جب طالبان امن کریں تو سائلنس آف دا گریو یارڈ. آپ نے پورے علاقے میں دیکھا, مجھے خود بھی مجھے موقع ملا سارے علاقے میں دیکھا. یہ مجھے بتائیے کہ 2-3 چیزیں. ایک تو یہ ہے کہ ان کا ٹیکسیشن سسٹم وہ کیا تھا, اور دوسرا یہ تھا کہ اس پورے علاقے کے اندر انہوں نے امن کی صورتحال جو ہے وہ کیسے قائم کی.
دیکھیے, امن کی صورتحال تو میرا خیال ہے ہر جگہ قائم ہو سکتی ہے اگر آپ اسلامی قوانین پہ عمل کرانا شروع کر لیں. ڈیٹرنس ہو تو پھر چور, بدماش, ڈاکو, لٹیرا وہ بھی ہاتھ کھینچ لیتا ہے. افغانستان میں ایسے نہیں تھا کہ کوئی چور بدماش نہیں تھا ضرور, لیکن ڈر گیا کیونکہ اسے معلوم تھا کہ اگر یہ غلطی میں کر لوں تو میرا ہاتھ کٹ جائے گا یا مجھے گولی لگ جائے گی. تو انہوں نے یہ سزائیں بالکل صحیح دی. کوئی کچھ بھی کہہ دے, کوئی اسلام نے جو سزا تجویز کی ہے آپ اس سے 1300 سال پرانی کی کہانی گڑھے یا جو بھی بات کہیں وہ اپنی جگہ, لیکن اسلام کی سزا یا تو آپ اسلام مانتے ہیں, دین پہ عمل کرتے ہیں, اس کو ماننا پڑے گا کیونکہ وہ اللہ رب العزت نے وہ سزائیں مقرر کی. آپ اس کو امپلیمنٹ کرا سکتے ہیں, نہیں کرا سکتے وہ الگ بات ہے, لیکن وہ حدود اللہ رب العزت نے بنائی ہے. اگر آپ اس پہ عمل کر لیں, میں یقین سے کہہ سکتا ہوں کہ ہر ملک میں وہ چیزیں ختم ہو جاتی ہے, لیکن بدقسمتی سے اس پہ عمل نہیں ہوتا. طالبان کے زمانے میں اس پہ عمل ہوتا تھا, اس کی وجہ سے مشہور تھا. ہر ایک کہتا تھا کہ اگر جوان خوبصورت لڑکی ڈالر سے بھرا ہوا بیگ بھی کاندھے پہ اٹھا کے کندہار سے کابل جائے, راستے میں راتیں بھی آتی ہے تو مجال ہے کوئی اس کو یا اس کے ڈالر کو ہاتھ لگا لے.
اس کی گواہی تو
اس سے بڑی امن کی بات کہاں.
2 چیزیں طالبان کی ایسی ہیں کہ جو انٹرنیشنلی اکنالج ہوئی ہیں کیونکہ آپ وہاں پر رہے ہیں, اور اس زمانے 9/11 سے پہلے. ایک تھا کہ انہوں نے ڈی ویپنائز کیا تھا, لوگوں سے اسلحہ واپس لے لیا. آپ خود پشتون ہیں. پشتون جو ہے وہ اپنا توپک زما قانون سے شروع ہوتا ہے اور بندوق کو اپنا زیور سمجھتا ہے. وہ سمجھتا ہے اگر بندوق کسی نے اس کی لے لی تو ایسے سمجھے کہ اس کے گھر سے عورت لے گیا. وہ کیسے لی انہوں نے؟
دیکھیں, وہ بندوق رکھتا کیوں ہے وہ وجہ بھی تو ہم دیکھ لیں. پشتون کا علاقہ اگر دیکھ لیں تو ابھی بھی زیادہ تر علاقے میں پولیس نہیں ہے, تو بندوق وہ اپنی عزت کی حفاظت کے لیے رکھتا ہے. تو جب اس کی عزت کی حفاظت انشور کرائی گئی تو پھر اس کی ضرورت کیا رہ گئی. یہ ایک بات. دوسری وجہ یہ ہے کہ جب سارے لوگوں سے لینا ہے, خدا نخواستہ آپ میرے دشمن ہیں, آپ سے بھی بندوق لے لی تو مجھ سے بھی ظاہر بات ہے.
وہ اسپیشل پرمٹ کو نہیں تھا کہ منسٹر آف انٹیریئر اس کو 3 پرمٹ دے گا اور ISI 2 پرمٹ دے گا اور فلانا, اس لیے وہاں پر وہ کامیاب ہو گیا. دوسرا جو تھا اب دنیا پوری میں آپریشنز ہوتے ہیں نارکوٹکس کے اوپر. کولمبیا میں ہوا, تھائی لینڈ میں ہوا, گرنیڈا میں ہوا, سب جگہ ہوا, لیکن سکسیس سٹوری نہیں بنتی. پوری دنیا میں جب سے نارکوٹک سپلائی کی چین بنی ہے ایک سکسیس سٹوری ہے, اور سکسیس سٹوری طالبان کی. آپ وہاں پر تھے, یہ کیسے بلٹ ہوا؟
دیکھیں, یہ بھی اس کا منطقی انجام یہی ہوتا ہے جس پہ ہم نے پہلے بات کی کہ سزا اور جزا کا عمل وہاں تھا. ملا عمر صاحب کو انہوں نے امیر المومنین مان لیا.
ٹھیک ہے,
96 میں میرا خیال ہے اس کو مان لیا. تب تک شاید وہ
جی 96 تک
لیڈر تھے.
96
کی بات
درمیان میں
تو 96 میں علماء کی میٹنگ ہوئی جس میں وہ جبہ بھی کندہار کے مسجد سے لائے, لوگ کہتے کہ رسول کریم صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کا تھا, تو وہ بھی پہنا دیا. سارے ان لوگوں نے مان لیا ایک زبانوں کے کہ ہمارا امیر المومنین ہے. تو جب سے امیر المومنین بنایا مرنے تک اس کے آرڈر کو میں نے ڈسریگارڈ کرتے ہوئے نہیں دیکھا, سوائے ان لوگوں کا جو اس کو مانتے نہیں تھے, اس کے دشمن تھے. ان کے جو پیروکار تھے یا اس علاقے میں رہتے تھے, ملا عمر کا حکم حتمی تھا. وہ کہہ لیتا کہ دن ہے تو دن ہے, رات ہے تو رات ہے, ختم, نو کوشچن. تو انہوں نے کہہ دیا کہ بھئی یہ پاپی گروئنگ از ناٹ الاؤڈ. سمپل, ایک چھوٹا سا آرڈر ایشو کر لیا.
بہت چھوٹا آرڈر تھا, میں نے آرڈر دیکھا.
چھوٹا سا آرڈر ایشو کر لیا, آرڈر امپلیمنٹ ہو گیا. دیٹس اٹ. نہ کوئی سپاہی تھے, نہ کوئی جہاز چلے, نہ کوئی توپ بندوق چلے. ملا وکیل صاحب میرے ساتھ
جی عبدالوکیل متوکل
جو ان کا فارن منسٹر تھا, آئے تھے یہاں پہ میرے ساتھ دفتر میں بیٹھے تھے. تو ہمارے کابل سفارت خانے سے ٹیلی فون آیا, وہ میرا پی آیا, کہتے جی بہت ضروری ہے. حالانکہ فارن منسٹر ہوتا ہے تو اس نے چٹ پہ لکھا. تو میں سمجھ گیا, میں وکیل صاحب کو کہا کہ ٹیلی فون ضروری ہے, اٹھا لو. اس نے کہا ہاں. تو میری وہاں بات ہو رہی تھی, پشتو میں تھی, تو وکیل صاحب سمجھ گئے. وہاں پہ ہمارے ڈپٹی ایمبیسڈر اور ڈیفنس اٹاشی کو انہوں نے روکا تھا, تھانے میں بٹھایا تھا. ایک کی داڑھی ذرا چھوٹی تھی, دوسرے کی داڑھی تھی ہی نہیں. تو وکیل صاحب نے مجھے کہا کہ ذرا ہو, ایسے اشارہ کیا کہ ہولڈ کرو. مجھے کہتے ذرا اس کو کہو کہ جو طالبان کمانڈر ہے وہاں پہ ان کو بلائے, 5 منٹ بعد رنگ کر.
ٹھیک,
میں نے میسج کنوے کر لیا. میں نے کہا فارن منسٹر صاحب میرے ساتھ بیٹھے, یہ احکامات ہے اور بے فکر ہے. تو جب اس کو بلایا, دوبارہ ٹیلی فون آیا, تو ملا وکیل صاحب کا یہ کہنا تھا ان کو کہ یہ ان لڑکوں کو کس نے اجازت دی کہ داڑھی چھوٹی ہو یا نہ ہو اس پہ تم لوگوں کو پکڑو. یہ حکم تو نہ ملا عمر نے دیا ہے, نہ ہم میں سے کسی لیڈرشپ نے دیا ہے. یہ کیوں کراتے ہو, بدنامی خواہ ہمارے لیے کراتے ہو. اور اس کو ہدایت دی کہ ان کو پکڑے اور ان کو جیل میں ڈال دے جن لڑکوں نے کیا ہے, اور یہ ہمارے سفارتکاروں کو عزت و احترام سے پہنچا دے اور معافی بھی مانگ لے.
جی یہ بہت بڑی وضاحت ہے. ناظرین, یہ وضاحت آج تک کسی نے نہیں کی کہ جس داڑھی کے اوپر سزاؤں کا قانون تھا, یہ ملا عمر نے کبھی اس کا آرڈر نہیں کیا, اور نہ طالبان کی کسی اور قیادت نے کیا.
I was very tense, very excited. I was going to see firsthand what life was like in one of the major cities in Afghanistan, in this male-dominated regime where women were oppressed and subjugated according to Bush and Blair. When we pulled up at the marketplace, I was really surprised, because there, who was doing all the shopping? The men. You can't get Western men into supermarkets or to do the shopping, and there were all these men doing the shopping. I thought, well, this is a good sign. Of course, the reason for that was under the Taliban regime, women were not allowed to talk to strange men, and strange men were any men other than a husband, a father, a brother, or a close male relative. So doing something as simple as buying a bag of sugar was virtually impossible unless you were related to the trader. There were women around. They were all wearing the burqa, and they were in the company of their mahram or male companion escort. I sat on the edge of the marketplace and watched. and there were lots of Taliban around, and people seemed very excited and very happy. They didn't seem as though they were about to be bombed by the most powerful nation in the world. People seemed relaxed, and I was quite surprised. They started talking to me. The first was a young girl in her 20s, and I said, "What do you think about this impending war?" And she said, "I am so angry. I should be in a hospital by now, qualified as a doctor, ready to help my people, ready to save lives. People are going to be wounded in this war, and I could help and save them." And I said, "So what is your problem?" She said, "My training was stopped a couple of years ago. The Taliban closed down the training center and sent all the instructors home. And here I am now, back home, rotting away in this village when I should be helping my people." And I felt very sorry for her, and I could feel her frustration. Here was a young, ambitious girl, and her life seemed to have been put in limbo. Just then, her elder brother came in, and he, through the translator, started talking, and he also had been training to be a doctor at the very same medical school, and when it had closed down for financial reasons, he too had been sent home. So it wasn't just the girl who has been affected, her brother was as well. Through my mind, when suddenly the Taliban soldier returns, and he has with him a woman wearing a burqa. She comes up behind me and turns me around very briskly and starts to frisk me. And I thought, oh, they're not going to kill me. Well, not just yet anyway. They're trying to find out if I'm carrying any weapons. And isn't it strange that he's gone off to get a woman? You know, why wouldn't he just search me himself? Obviously showing more courtesy than British police. To Jalalabad. I was taken into the intelligence headquarters and introduced to the head of intelligence, who understood a little bit of English. I apologized for causing any inconvenience, and he asked me to write down my personal details and telephone contacts to prove that I was a journalist. After I had done that, he said, "We are about to eat. You must have something to eat." And I said, "Well, that's very kind, but I need to use the telephone first." And he said, "No, you can't use the phone." So I said, "In that case, I won't eat either as a guest or a prisoner of the Taliban until I can use the phone." And what started then was the war of attrition, which was to last 10 days. Now, you would think that the most evil, brutal regime in the world couldn't care less if one of their prisoners had gone on hunger strike. But these men were very, very upset. Despite my protest saying I'm not eating, every morning, noon and night they would bring me food. They would lay out a cloth on the floor, beautiful carpeted floor by the way, and they would put down some bread, some stew, and some rice, and they would bring in a jug of water and a bowl, and they would wash my hands, and they would tell me in broken English, "You are our sister, you are our guest, we want you to be happy." And I thought, what sort of evil, brutal regime is this? Don't they understand the job description? And I'm thinking, you know, this is just a trick. They're trying to soften me up. And then the really bad guys will come in with the electrodes. In fact, isn't it strange? Everything that I thought would have happened to me under this so-called savage, primitive regime happened to prisoners in Abu Ghraib, in Guantanamo Bay, and other US holding facilities, which always prompts me to say, thank God I was captured by the most evil, brutal regime in the world and not by the Americans. day, they called the doctor. Not that I was feeling unwell at all, but they called the doctor, and he came, a little man who trained in Germany, and he looked in my eyes, my ear, took my pulse, looked in my mouth, and I thought, they do this, don't they, on death row in Texas just before they're going to execute somebody. They like to make sure that they're fit and healthy. And then he took my blood pressure, and something bothered him because he then took it again. And I said, yes, I know I have high blood pressure. And he said, no, you don't. Your blood pressure is normal. I said, don't be so ridiculous. It can't be normal. You know, I'm about to be killed by the Taliban. How on earth is my blood pressure normal? And he said, look, and he did it again. And it was normal. I said, there you are, 3 days with the Taliban, and you've cured my blood pressure. Thank you very much. On the 5th day, there was a little guy called Hamid, the doctor's son actually, who acted as the translator, and he came running into my room very, very excited. He said, you were on the front page of the papers. And he brought in the weekly paper from Jalalabad. And although photographs were banned under the Taliban, there were 2 pictures of me from Reuters on the front page with a little story and headlines that took over half the page. The headlines looked longer than the story. And I said, what does the headline say? And he read it out, and he said, it says, the Taliban has cured Yvonne Ridley's blood pressure and she's very happy. Not the catchiest of headlines. During those 6 days in Jalalabad, a procession of very scary, fierce-looking men came into the room, and through Hamid asked me questions, and the interrogations would go on until maybe 8, 9 o'clock at night. They never physically threatened me. The worst thing that they said to me was, if you don't tell us the truth, you will be here for 20 years. I assured them that they would get sick long before I did. And I had decided on quite a risky strategy, really. I had decided to be the prisoner from hell. I had bought into the propaganda, you see, that this was the most evil, brutal regime in the world, and it didn't matter what I said or did, they were going to kill me at the end of the day, when they wanted to. And so I just thought, if I'm nice, they're going to kill me. If I'm nasty, they're going to kill me. Well, I'm just going to go down fighting. And so I was very abusive and aggressive. And the harder I pushed them, the nicer they were. And they would say, why are you angry? You are our guest. You are our sister. Hamid had to translate my words. And one day he said to me, I am terrified of these people, and you should be as well. And it's not nice for me to translate your words. I get scared. On the 6th day, Hamid came to see me, and his face was nearly black with fear. His mouth was so dry he could hardly talk. And he said, you have a very important visitor. And I said, who is it? He said, I can't tell you, but you must be respectful. I said, well, who is it? Is it Mullah Omar? And he said, please, just be respectful. You have to show some respect. This is a very, very important person. So I'm thinking, I wonder who it can be. 10 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. Although I was the prisoner, I had my own key. And so I unlocked the door, opened it. Hamid stood aside, and there in front of me was a man who made my blood run cold. The hair on the back of my neck lifted. For 6 days I had avoided talking about religion. and there in front of me was a religious cleric, a Malana. And everything in Afghanistan is dirty, ripped and torn and dusty. He was wearing an immaculate ivory gown, one which went right down to the ground. The Taliban's clothes were above their ankles. This guy's clothes were right down to the ground. You couldn't see his feet. And he had a great big ivory turban. A very modest beard by Afghan standards. Very light brown, modest beard. And light brown eyes. And he had beads which he moved, like rosary beads, which he moved 2 at a time. And there was something else about him that I thought was weird. And when I mentioned it to my first Muslim crowd, a few of them went, Alhamdulillah. When I told them, I said there was something really weird about this guy. He had a shine on his face. It was like a light on the inside coming out. I've never seen anything like it before. And I was told by my Muslim friends back in London, this is the nur, the light that comes out of somebody who is very pious, very practicing, a very good person. I didn't know that at the time. I just thought there's something weird and spooky about this guy. After I recovered, I moved aside and invited him into my room. And he was so graceful and elegant, he didn't even seem to walk. He just glided in and glided down. And I sat opposite him, and Hamid acted as the translator. And he said, "What is your religion?" And I thought, oh, here we go. I said, "I'm a Christian." He said, "Yes, but what sort of Christian? Are you a Roman Catholic? Are you a Protestant?" I said, "I'm a Protestant from the Church of England." And he's smiling and moving his beads. And he said, "And what do you think of Islam?" "Oh," I said, "it's fantastic. It's absolutely wonderful." Of course, I knew nothing about Islam, very little, and the little that I knew was totally wrong, as it turned out. And I went off in praise for 2 minutes of this faith that I knew so little about. And he smiled and he moved his beads. And then when I finally stopped running out of adjectives, he said, "Islam is a beautiful religion." I couldn't agree more. And then again, I ran off in praise of Islam. And he smiled as he listened, and Hamid translated. And I said, "Do you know, the people around here are so passionate about their faith that they pray 5 times a day." I know, because I've watched and counted it. And he looked. He must have thought, "You stupid woman." But I didn't realize that Muslims are expected to pray 5 times a day. So he moved his beads. And then he said, "So, you would like to convert?" And I thought, he's led me into a blind alley here. If I say, "Yes, I'll convert," he'll accuse me of being fickle and insincere, and he'll say, "Take her away and have her stoned." If I say, "No, I'm not interested," he'll say, "How dare you insult Islam? Take her away and have her stoned." So I'm trying to come up with the right answer. And then in the end I said, "Look, I can't make such a life-changing decision while I'm in prison. But if you let me go, I promise I will read the Quran and I will study Islam." And he smiled and he didn't say anything more. And he rose up and he glided out. Hamid went scuttling after him. And he returned a few minutes later and he said, You're going home on a Red Crescent plane." Well, I punched the air in since my captivity. And I said, "Well, the Taliban have finally broken me." And amid the sobbing, I felt for my cigarettes, because although cigarettes were banned under the Taliban, when they realized I smoked, they gave me lots of cigarettes. So I pulled out my cigarettes and I was about to light up when I just said, "Oh, does anybody mind if I smoke?" And the tears were coming down and I'm sobbing and about to light my cigarette when they all said, "Yes, this is a no smoking cell." How could I find the only no smoking cell in Asia? How unlucky can you get? They said, "Look, if you must smoke, go outside into the courtyard. We're about to have a meeting." Suddenly, my nicotine craving went, and I said, "A meeting?" And they said, "Yes, we have 2 meetings a day." And I'm looking round and thinking, what happens round here that they have 2 meetings a day? It's the escape committee. They're digging a tunnel, and this is a progress report. So I said, "Do you mind if I listen in to your meeting?" And they said, "No, not at all." So I suddenly forgot about my cigarettes for the time being, and I sat on the edge of this bunk bed, and the 6 girls sat in a circle on the floor, and then they pulled out their Bibles. And I'm thinking, I don't believe this. They have been charged under Sharia law with trying to convert Muslims to Christianity. They're in serious trouble. They could be executed. And now they're getting their Bibles out, and I'm looking at the door expecting the Taliban to come bursting in and beat them up or do something horrible to them. And nothing happened. Of course, as I did read the Quran later, it states quite specifically that we must, as Muslims, protect people of the book, i.e. Jews and Christians, and we must allow them to carry on and carry out and perform their faith. And this is exactly what the Taliban were allowing the Christians to do, although I didn't realize it at the time. So they read from the Bible, very loudly, a passage appropriate to their position. And after 20 minutes, they put their Bibles down and pulled out hand-written pieces of paper. And then they started to sing. Now, I can tell you, as you know, I was a practicing Christian in those days. And when I say practicing, I probably went to church maybe twice a month, which in some people's eyes is bordering on fanaticism. And we would sing, you know, these Victorian hymns, and they started singing not Victorian hymns. We are talking very loud, very robust, happy-clappy, full-on Southern Baptist style, hallelujah type singing. So this started, and at that point I went outside into the courtyard and I smoked 3 cigarettes off the trot. The azan, the call to prayer, started, and I thought, I don't believe it. I've got Muslims on that side of the wall, Christian fundamentalists in that cell. No wonder that religious cleric was smiling as he left me. He probably thought, she won't convert? Well, feed her to the Christians. Although I make fun of them, I have to say that those 6 girls were incredibly strong, and their faith did get them through their ordeal, which lasted much, much longer than mine. After they'd finished singing, they then started praying. And again, it was really full-on, in-your-face, hallelujah type praying. In fact, at one point, they were all shouting different things, and at one point I could hear one of the girls, I think it was the American girl, Heather, shouting, "Lord Jesus, show me the way out of here." And I have a very gallows sense of humour, and I felt like shouting back, straight down the corridor and turn left, but there's a great big Talib there. That night I slept on this concrete floor with a very wafer-thin mattress, and when I woke up the next morning I was given a change of clothes. In fact, I'm wearing the prison clothes now. Nobody put me in an orange jumpsuit, shaved, shackled, or abused me, or raped me, or sodomized me, or videoed me for the gratification or pleasure of others later on. As you can see from what I'm saying, my experience was completely different to those who fell into the hands of the Americans. So that morning, a new change of clothes, so I set about washing the old ones. And one of the German girls took me into the courtyard and gave me a metal bucket and took me to a hand pump, and she said, you can get your water from there. And I'm looking at this contraption which looked as though it had come from one of those old Western movies, and I started cranking it, and eventually some water came out, and I'm saying, this is amazing. How do they heat it underground? And she started laughing. She said, it's cold. I was given a pumice stone and some soap flakes, and I set about washing my clothes, and I then hung them on the washing line in the prison courtyard. Within 5 minutes, I'm sitting trying to enjoy the last days of the summer sun, and the prison governor came in, a great big man with a huge beard and really a very scary looking dude. And he came in, and in broken English he said to me, he growled at me, remove those garments. And I'm looking, I said, it's my washing. Remove them now. And I said, I can't. It's my washing. I am washing my clothes. This is a washing line. We dry our clothes on the washing line. Well, cover them up. And I'm looking, I said, you stupid man. You've obviously never done the washing in your life. How on earth will it dry if it's covered up? So he stood there for a couple of moments, and then he said, well, take those items down. And he looked the other way and sort of pointed. And I realized he was talking about my underwear. And I said, no, this is the female wing of the prison. If you don't like what you see, clear off. He said, remove them. And I said, no, if you don't like them, you remove them. And I thought he was going to explode on the spot. He then went storming off, and he returned 15 minutes later with the Deputy Foreign Minister of Afghanistan. These people are about to be bombed by the most powerful country on earth, and a diplomatic incident was unfolding as a result of my underwear. I don't want to embarrass the men here, but I mean, we're not talking anything small, salacious and lacy. We're talking big, comfortable Bridget Jones. So the Deputy Foreign Minister said to me, will you please remove your undergarments from the line? And I said, look, this is the female wing of the prison. There are no male prisoners. The only men around at the moment are you two. If you clear off, there will be no men. By the time they're dried, nobody's going to be any the wiser. He said, yes, but the Taliban soldiers live above the female wing of the prison. And if they look out and see those things, they'll have impure thoughts. I'm looking at my underwear in a new light now. I said, there's a very easy solution to this. He said, I knew there would be. I said, tell your men not to look out of the window. No, that's impossible. I thought, I cannot believe this. You know, America didn't need to fly over in B-52s and bomb these people. They should have just parachuted in a regiment of women soldiers waving their underwear, and the Taliban would have gone. But it gives you a remarkable insight into the modesty of these people and the way they felt about issues like women's underwear. So the argument continued and went on long after the clothes had dried, and nobody emerged as a real winner, but I did get my dry clothes back. The next day, the 9th day, I was feeling really crotchety. I'd had 3 or 4 really rousing sessions with the Christian services. And in fact, you know, although the Taliban had banned singing and they'd banned music, they allowed them to sing, but they drew the line at music. And I am eternally grateful to this day that they confiscated their tambourines and guitars. But so I'm feeling really wretched and bad-tempered and thinking I'm never going to get out of this place. I can't take much more of this. And the Deputy Foreign Minister returned with his sidekick, a man I called the Smiling Assassin. And he said, we want to ask you a few more questions. And I said, no, I'm done with answering any more questions. I'm finished with you people. I've had enough. And I then launched into a series of insults and curses and swearing. And then I rounded it off with something that I've never done in my life before, I've never done since, and you would get sent off a football pitch for doing it. I spat at them. And then I went into my cell and I started shaking, and a couple of the Christian girls said, did you just do what we thought you did? And I said, yes, I've gone beyond the line. I've gone beyond the wire. I've pushed it, and I'm in serious trouble now. I can sense it. And just then one of the female prison officers came in, and which was translated for me later, and she said, tell the English woman she is going to be flogged because she cannot do this to high-ranking people. So I'm standing there rigid with fear, cursing me and my big mouth, and wondering, is there going to be a public flogging? Will Al Jazeera be there to record it? You know, what is going to happen? And I'm standing there rigid with fear, and about 10-15 minutes later we heard the gates open in the courtyard, and Heather, one of the American girls, came running in, and she said, they've returned. Yvonne is going to be flogged. And just then 3 of the Christians threw themselves down at me and grabbed onto my clothes and started saying, Lord Jesus, don't let Yvonne feel any pain. And I'm standing there looking at them thinking, you know, you're making it worse. And just then the Smiling Assassin walked in, and he had in his hand the one thing that I wanted, the very thing I had gone on hunger strike for 9 days earlier. He had in his hand a satellite phone, and he strutted around the cell and showed off this satellite phone, and he said, all of you can ring home. You can all ring your families today. Apart from her, the English woman, she's horrible and she spat at us and she has to be punished. So it's interesting, this is how the most evil, brutal regime in the world decided to punish me. They allowed my cellmates to ring home, which was fantastic for the Germans. They hadn't, and all of them, they hadn't spoken to their family for 2 months. It was an opportunity to ring home and say, look, we're okay, we're holding out. And then one of the German girls went to the smiling assassin and made a special plea and said, look, Yvonne needs to talk to her daughter, please let her call home. And he said, no, she's a horrible woman, she has to be punished. And as I say, that was my punishment, which I, looking back, think shows a degree of wisdom and insight on their part, which is more than can be said for my behaviour. And my only mitigation is, look, I hadn't eaten for 9 days and I was starting to get fractures. That afternoon, the senior officers returned and they removed me without warning, got my things together and said, you're going. And then they took me out of the prison and upstairs into the Taliban sleeping quarters. And one of the senior officers had vacated his room and said, you complained about the prison downstairs, is this good enough for you? And it was a very nice room by Afghan standards. And he said, tomorrow you will go home, inshallah. And I said, what is this inshallah you keep using at the end of every sentence and it never ever happens? Of course, I now know inshallah means God willing. And they put me in this room, they gave me the key, I locked myself in. I had a fantastic view over the city of Kabul, looking right up to Kabul Hill where all the anti-aircraft units were. And I sat on the bed contemplating my future, wondering if and when I'd ever get out. They kept saying, tomorrow you will go home, inshallah, but inshallah it never happened. And so I was wondering how genuine they actually were. Why had they removed me from the Christians? Was this my last night on earth? Would they execute me tomorrow? I really didn't know. All of this was going through my mind, and then suddenly there was a huge rip, as though somebody had just torn the sky open, and there was a great big light. And it was the start of the war. That night, America and Britain dropped 50 cruise missiles on Kabul. You can hear a cruise missile from 20 miles away. These were coming within a quarter of a mile